Hello, this is old Mr. Kent of MrKent.com, and the image that you were looking at the beginning of this video was one of 4 pallets of cobblestones, which at one time were in this walkway here. And I might even have a video showing the old ones somewhere. I'll see if I can find it and put a link to it if you want to see what it used to look like. But my granddaughter is planning on having a wedding here in the backyard later this year. And so this will be the aisle that her dad, my son, walks down with her to give her away to her new husband. So the cobblestones would have made it kind of hard because they had been installed poorly, and they were up and down, and they had holes in them and so forth. So we decided that we'll take those out and put concrete in. Now, one other thing, I'm going to tell you a story here before we go too far, but one other thing I need to mention is I haven't been putting up videos as regularly as I usually do because the internet connection here was really bad. My son got a T-Mobile 5G network, which worked pretty good, but it was in his house, and we had some problems with it. So we finally bit the bullet, spending $60 a month for our own Wi-Fi, and it seems to work really, really well. So I should be able to put up some videos. Also, the next thing that happened was I was reinstalling Windows on my video editor computer, and in the process, it died. Now, the reason it died is because since we have moved out into this part of the country, it's very dusty, and I have often thought about taking the side off and using compressed air and blowing the dust out of the fan that's above the processor. Well, I didn't get that done, so finally it got to the point where it died. And so the story goes like this. I was anxious to get a new computer going because I thought this one was dead, which the processor had gone out. And so we ran out to Best Buy, and they didn't have any computers because with everybody working at home because of the virus, there's not many computers available, but they did have one they could ship to us from the warehouse someplace else. So they did, and I bought that one, and so it was on its way, and it took about almost a week to get here. But in the meantime, I thought, I used to teach at a computer school. I will go ahead and see if I can replace the processor. So I got a new processor and put it in, and sure enough, the computer worked. So yesterday we took back the new one that finally came, and so now I'm using my old computer, and it's working just fine. I am going to get some more RAM for it, though. So anyway, that's my story of why I haven't been putting up videos lately. But as you can see, the guy across the street, our neighbor across the street, he volunteered. He's worked in concrete for years, and he volunteered to do this for my granddaughter. And so there they are working away. And so as you watch that, I promised in my last video to tell you some of my sailing stories, and I started out by talking about my twin brother friends, the Lewis brothers, who had a 17-foot wooden sailboat, which was beautiful. And we sailed it around in Angle Lake, which is a real small lake. Finally, they decided to move it out and have it moored in Lake Washington, in the southern end of Lake Washington. And then we could get some good sailing in. And so that was a good choice because I had never been introduced to sailing. And so when we finally got it put in Lake Washington, which is there in Seattle, then even I could just go. They didn't care. I could go out and go sailing by myself and get some practice. So anyway, some of the things that happened to us while we were sailing around Lake Washington I'll tell you some of the stories about that. The first one that I remember is one Saturday, the three of us got in that little sailboat in the southern end of Lake Washington, and it was a beautiful day for sailing, and there was a lot of wind, and so we kind of explored along the edges, and we spent our time, going along the shoreline, looking at the fancy houses, and just having a really fun day. And back then, they only had one floating bridge across Lake Washington. Now they have two, but back then they only had the one. And you could sail a sailboat. The eastern end of the floating bridge rose up above the water, and so you could sail a sailboat underneath the end of it. So we did that. We sailed up in between the pillars. And by the way, when you sail a sailboat, you can actually sail into the wind, not straight into the wind, but at about a 30-degree angle to the wind. And so didn't matter which way the wind was blowing. We could sail north and go beneath that part of the bridge, and not worry about running into the pillars that hold up the bridge. So that was how we did it that one particular day when it was really windy on a Saturday. And so, as you can see, the guys are the truck's moving so that they can get the concrete to another part of the walkway. So one Saturday we got in the boat, and it was blowing wind. It wasn't stormy. It was just nice, breezy, sunshiny day. And we sailed underneath the floating bridge and went up further north in the lake. And I can't remember now how far it was that we went up further north, but we spent, well, I'll just put it this way. We spent the day out sailing and exploring Lake Washington. And so, and by the way, we went up by Kirkland, and back then there was no internet, there was no Microsoft, so Kirkland was this kind of a wooded area, and they had some friends that lived there, and I'll tell you about that. But anyway, so we sailed around, and then it just turned out that as we decided it was time to start heading south, well, we sailed along the edge of the floating bridge, and we turned south, and we had been bouncing on waves and having a lot of fun, and everybody was getting wet, and that was okay because it was a nice warm day. But as soon as we sailed beneath the floating bridge and started heading south, the wind quit. Now, and we had one paddle in the boat. And it was late in the day, so everybody was soaking wet, and it was too cold to really just sit there. So the two brothers, they decided they would curl up in the sails, and I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to paddle the boat. So I sat on the bow with my legs astride of the jib line, and started paddling a little bit on the left, a little bit on the right. And, we weren't moving very fast, but we were moving. And we came by Seward Park, which is a peninsula in the lake, eventually. But by the time we got by there, it was getting dark. So I kept paddling, and they were soaking wet. I was all dried out. And so I got us back into the moorage, and we went home that Saturday night and had a good memory. So that was one outing that we took. Now here you can see, because the concrete had to be a little deeper than we thought because of the way it was laid out, they ran short of what they ordered. And so they're kind of in a panic here, trying to get the concrete to come to a nice end right there. That's why they're putting that board in there. So anyway, on another trip, we decided we'd sail up to Kirkland, where they had this friend. And so we sailed up there, and we tied the boat up to just a pier, sticking up out of the water. And it was a nice day, and so they went up there, and they wanted us to stay all night because just because they were good friends. So that night we stayed, and then next morning we got up, and it was really windy. We were kind of wondering, where's the sailboat? What's happening to it? Well, it was tied up to that moorage pier, and it was okay, but it had been beat up a lot, which was kind of a sad thing. So that wasn't good. That wasn't good for that poor old sailboat. So then we sailed home, and everything was fine. And then I can't remember if that was the time or not, but anyway, there's been times when we had to sail in the rain, and pouring down rain in the Seattle area is not much fun. Well, anyway, so we got home, and now they're winding up here, and they have they're going to go ahead and finish on another day. So anyway, so another time, let me see. Oh, I know. One time we decided we would go into the to the ship canal. Actually, it goes between Lake Washington and Lake Union, and I'll put a map up. I'll put some Google Maps up for that. And you might be able to hear our horses. My family got 3 horses, which they didn't have before. So this is day 2 of pouring, as you can see, and he's backing in to put the concrete down. Well, anyway, so we went through the ship canal because it was a nice wind, and we got into Lake Union. And then when it came time to come back out, the wind had died, and so going through the ship canal, you can't tack. It's just kind of hard to get through there. But back in those days, there was a lumber mill on Lake Washington shores, and so tugboats would get a log tow and bring it down through the ship canal from Puget Sound and into Lake Washington. And so at that day, there just happened to be a tugboat with a tow of logs, and so as he went by, we paddled over, grabbed a hold of it, and tied the boat up to the edge of the log tow, and then we were out goofing around, having a lot of fun, and just jumping around on the logs. Well, as it turned out, we almost lost the boat because it caught the wind and it was tipping over so far sideways that water was going into the boat. So that was not a good thing to happen. Well, as you can see, I've got more sailing stories, but anyway, we'll wind up with that one. As you can see, our neighbor, is an excellent concrete finisher, and by the time they were finished that day, I came out later in the day and made this video because they did such a nice, neat job, very professional job, and he doesn't do that anymore as a living, but he did an excellent job, and that was his son jumping around and helping him a lot throughout the video here. So anyway, so the cobblestones are gone. Nobody's going to trip going down the aisle. And my granddaughter's got a nice walkway, and later this year the yard will be all cleaned up, and we'll have a wedding there, and she'll be a married lady. And I remember the day she was born. So it's fun being a grandpa sometimes. But anyway, I want to thank you so much for watching my videos and listening to my stories. I've got more sailing stories because later in life I bought myself a big old sailboat. So we'll tell you about that. I want to thank you for watching, and God bless.